Break a man's bone and they will break your bone. Knock out a man's tooth and they will knock out your tooth. Put out a man's eye and they will put out your eye. That's the part everyone knows. Well, maybe not everybody, but it's the part that made it into the phrase. An eye for an eye. It sounds like a principle, brutal, but at least it's equal. Those 3 lines are carved into a 7-foot pillar of black basalt that a Babylonian king put up in a public square around 1750 BC. 282 laws cut into stone where anyone could walk up and read them. So keep reading down the stone. Put out a commoner's eye, and you do not lose your eye. You pay 1 mina of silver. Knock out a commoner's tooth, and you pay 1/3 of a mina. Put out a slave's eye, and you pay half of what that slave is worth, and you pay it to the man who owns him. You have just heard the same injury priced 3 separate ways in the space of about 15 seconds. And once you notice that, you cannot unnotice what this law is actually doing, because it isn't pricing the eye. It's pricing the person the eye belonged to. That is a very strange thing for a law to do, and it has a very strange consequence. If the law is going to charge you silver for damaging a person, then somebody at some point had to sit down and decide how much a person was worth. Not in a poetic sense, in silver. An actual figure agreed on, written down, and cut into a rock in the middle of a city. That figure exists. It is still there. And by the end of this, you are going to know exactly what it is. But the number on its own would just be shocking. To understand what it actually means, you have to see the rest of what is on that stone. Because the surprising thing about Hammurabi's code is not how primitive it is, it's how modern it is. The code has procedure. It has rules about evidence, about witnesses, about who has to prove what. If you accuse a man of a capital crime and you cannot prove it, the punishment for the failed accusation falls on you. You are put to death, which is a savage way to do it. But it is unmistakably a rule designed to stop people making things up. The code has a concept of intent. If you strike a man in a fight and injure him, you are allowed to swear an oath that you did not strike him on purpose. And if that oath stands, you don't lose a hand and you don't lose an eye. You pay his doctor's bill. That's it. A distinction between hurting someone deliberately and hurting someone by accident, written down in 1750 BC. And the code has professional liability. If a builder puts up a house so badly that it collapses and kills the owner, the builder is put to death. If a surgeon opens a man with a bronze blade and kills him, the surgeon's hands are cut off. So the picture forming here is of a system that is harsh, yes, but organized, rational, trying in its own grim way, to be fair. Hold on to that because it is about to come apart. If a man is struck in a fight and he dies, not murdered, killed in a brawl, the man who killed him weighs out silver. If the dead man was a nobleman, the payment is half a mina, 30 shekels. If the dead man was a commoner, the payment is 1/3 of a mina, 20 shekels. That is what it cost under the foundational law of the age to end a human life. It isn't a metaphor and it isn't an interpretation. It is a number carved into a rock in public where the dead man's family could walk past and read it. And it goes further than money, because the law also cares about which direction the violence traveled. Strike a man of your own rank, and you pay a fine, 1 mina of silver. If you are a freed man and you strike another freed man, the fine drops, 10 shekels. But strike a man who is above you, and there is no fine at all. You are taken out in public and given 60 blows with an ox whip. And if a slave strikes a free man, they cut off his ear. Look at what that means. The physical act is identical in every case. One person hits another person, but it is a fine or a public flogging or a mutilation, depending entirely on whether the blow traveled sideways or upward or down. The law is not measuring the violence. It is measuring the gap between the two people involved and charging you for crossing it. Now here's the part that catches most people off guard, because it runs the opposite way to what you'd expect. Look again at the top of that list. A nobleman blinds another nobleman. There is no fine available to him. He cannot pay. There is no sum of silver written down for that case because that case doesn't have a price. It has a punishment. His eye comes out. The silver only appears in the law when the victim is beneath the man who hurt him, which means the price list was never a way for the powerful to buy their way out of trouble in general. Among equals, this law was physical and merciless. The money exists for one purpose only, to price the distance between a man and someone below him. The tariff wasn't mercy for the strong, it was mercy for the strong when they hurt downward, and nothing else. And then there is the law that tells you what this system actually thought a person was. A builder builds a house. The house collapses. The owner dies. The builder is executed. We've covered that. But there is a second version of that law sitting directly underneath it. The house collapses, and it kills the owner's son. The punishment is not that the builder is executed. The punishment is that they execute the builder's son. Listen to that again. A child who did nothing put to death to settle the account for a child who did nothing. The builder is not being punished. He's being charged. And the currency is a son, because the law is not really treating people as individuals at all. It is treating them as parts of a household, as things a household possesses. You destroyed a son belonging to that house, so a son must be destroyed from yours. The ledger balances. The units in that ledger just happen to be human beings. You can see the same logic in the most mundane places. A surgeon who saves a nobleman's life earns 10 shekels. For a commoner, 5. For a slave, 2. Even healing someone was priced by who they were. So why would anyone write that down? Why put a price on a man at all? And why be so exact about it? Because the exactness is the whole point. Think about what a published price list actually does. It takes discretion away. If the value of a commoner's tooth is carved into a stone in the middle of the city, then a judge cannot invent a number on the day. A powerful man cannot bully a family into accepting less, and a wronged family cannot spiral into a blood feud because the debt has already been settled in advance, in writing, by the king, for everyone. The code says as much itself. Let the wronged man come and read the stone, and learn what he is owed. That is not nothing. That is the moment a society stops handling violence with private vengeance and starts handling it with public arithmetic. It is, in its own horrifying way, a step toward the rule of law. But arithmetic needs numbers, and to write those numbers down, somebody had to sit and decide, in advance, what a human being was worth. There is one thing I should be straight about, though. A law code is not a diary. This stone tells us what the punishment could be, not how often anyone reached for it. The surviving court records from Babylon are full of settlements, negotiations, compromises, real people, mostly finding ways around the harshest edges of what the state allowed. The stele may have been as much a monument to Hammurabi's greatness as a working statute. Kings like to be remembered as lawgivers, but the numbers were still on it, publicly, permanently, where everyone could see them. The stone is still standing. It survived Babylon, and it survived the empires that came after Babylon, and it is currently in a room in the Louvre, in Paris, where you can walk up to within a few feet of it. 7 feet of black basalt, cut in columns, and the cuneiform is still sharp enough to read. And if you find the right column, and you get someone to translate it for you, you will get your answer. A human life. 20 shekels of silver. 4,000 years, 2 empires, an ocean and a museum, and the number is still there. Still sharp, still legible, still exactly where they left it.